This is the new car, and I just kind of wanted to show what I'm doing today. So, here's what's going on. So I got a new shifter. So the thing with BMWs is parts are expensive. E36s are getting cheap because they're so old, and so things are getting cheap. There's just been enough time for development on all kinds of things. So you can get a body-mounted E36 shifter with a cool spherical bearing, essentially, for like 55 bucks. And the cheapest version of that for this car, which is an E82 chassis, is 180 bucks for like the same thing. The only difference is this plate, which is the mounting plate. So the one that fits this chassis, there's 3 holes here. 1, 2, 3. And so the only difference between this $55 one and the $180 one is this bracket, because it's just longer. So I figured, well, that's stupid. I'm just gonna buy the cheap one and I'll make it fit. So I have some plate metal, and essentially I'm just going to cut this out about right here. I'm gonna measure it up so it fits around here. So the issue I'm having, see, is that even I was hoping that these holes would line up, at least 2 or 3 of them, so that I could just drill holes in the body and mount this plate. But it doesn't. There's only one that like slightly comes over the body. So to fix that, I'm just gonna plate over this hole with this guy, cut a hole out obviously for the shifter, and then bolt it through. So I'll bolt this plate to the car, probably with some RTV underneath so that it's sealed from the elements kind of a thing, because I won't be able to use the boot. And then I'll drill holes to fit these ones, and I'll run this one. This one goes up from underneath, and then that one goes in from the top. You bolt it together, and you're done, and you have a body-mounted shifter, which apparently are supposed to be way better. Really, the only reason I'm doing this is because this shifter doesn't have threads. So we're gonna try with this. If this doesn't work, I'm just gonna lop this off, and I'll weld on threads to fit a standard shifter, because I got one of these things, which is like a shift knob adapter for this kind of thing, and you can see I've been using it because I drilled in, and anyway, it was on there. It didn't look nice, and it wasn't that great, and it was still a pretty long throw, and so I figured, let's try this. So we're gonna try it. So I'm gonna cut this piece out, and hopefully it'll work, and work well enough, at least. And if it doesn't, no worries, and we'll not do it. But I figure this is a lot easier way for maybe an hour's worth of my time that's not worth anything, and some fabrication, to make this work. And a $50 shifter instead of essentially $200 and a bolt-in shifter. The install went great. I like it a ton. There's reverse. The only complaint I have is that at rest, it's like off-center to the side. So first gear, I don't know, maybe it's because the reverse has to come over so far. Seems like reverse could still come over to where my thumb is, about right there. because that seems like where first gear should be, but that might just be because I'm used to driving goofy things. First and second. Second is goofy because it's like a straight down from first, which is what it should be, I guess. I mean, I'm just used to pulling over towards me. And then third, fourth, fifth seems way over, and same with sixth. Like in this position, it seems way over there, but at the same time, it's still not like encroaching in your passenger's footwell. And it's great. So here's what I did. Pull that out too so you can see a little better. So there's that plate that I made. I painted it gray. I didn't end up needing the bottom ring because it didn't fit underneath the tunnel. And with this other plate, I figured this plate is enough of a plate. It doesn't need two of these. But then there's factory holes here, here, and up here. They're not threaded or anything, and actually they're square holes. So if you had the right trim piece, you could pop in like it's a square connector. Not a connector, a square piece of trim that has like a threaded spot. You might be able to get away with that with just screws, but I bolted these in, so there's two 12s and then a 10 down here just to make it a little easier, and then this is bolted through with 13 millimeter bolts on the other side of these Allens. These guys I Loctited, and then these ones had the nylon thread on the nut. And yeah, you can't really put it in wrong. I am gonna see if, I don't know, I don't think this is like centered. I don't think it's supposed to be centered, and I put it in centered. So I think if I move this base over a 1/4 inch, that might fix might fix this sitting over this way. Because then if I move its base, if we kick its base over, that should put it upright, more vertical. And so I'm gonna play with that at some point, to kick the base over maybe a 1/4 inch, or maybe even, I don't know if there's space for it to get kicked over 1/2 inch. But I'm gonna play with that and see if that'll even this out and position the shifter where I want. But other than that, it's fabulous. Let me shove this back down in there. So I retained factory everything, except for the boot that goes down there. But I also, I guess that's the other thing, I put RTV, like silicone, underneath that gray plate to seal it from the elements, so that there is no sound or noise. It's just doing the same thing as the boot, essentially. That's gross. Anyway, then with that all down, and then I just kind of shove this guy down. It needs a new boot, but I figure with it so low, it's fine. And then I don't think that's seated all the way right now either, but anyway, very notchy, just how I like my shifter. And even with it that far over, like, it gets out of the way of the steering wheel really well. And at some point I also plan on putting a hydraulic e-brake in. Probably not a vertical one, I don't like verticals. I'm gonna do one in this factory location, but it'll come up right here. It's kind of far back. I don't know if you can tell that. It seems far back. It would feel more natural to pull from here. You'd also get more leverage. So I'm planning, I don't know when, at some point, to put a horizontal style e-brake in. And if that's the case, then having this shifter positioned slightly over to the passenger side actually works out pretty well, because then they're not in the way, even in first or in second. Like, if this was over like that, it might get in the way, drifting in second to third. Anyway, but this is still adjustable, and I can run the nut in and out to adjust it, the throw. I'm happy where it's at right now. It's definitely a lot shorter, but it doesn't take a whole lot of force. I had it a lot shorter, and it took a lot more force to get it into first and second. I didn't like that, so I screwed it in a bit, so it'd be shorter throw, longer throw, but still, I mean, like, you can't complain. What is that? 2, maybe 3 inches worth of throw. There's more side-to-side throw, but I mean, the stock one had a ton of side-to-side play too. But anyway, that's my install. $55 short shifter instead of $200. And it's funny, the main thing that made me decide to try this was because the shift knob I wanted for my factory one was going to be like $50. So I was like, well, for $50 I can try out this whole new shifter, then have a short shifter that's taller and more racy and notchy and better. But I just didn't want to spend $200 on just a shifter, which I'm sure works great, but I didn't want to spend it. So yeah, there we go.